Hey guys, big show today, so let's go to the investment pros. Joining us, Joni Courtney with Monster Worldwide. You got your Christmas dress on, maybe you brought some gifts.
You're making money. I wore green for
right.
today.
Jim Frischling, our man, the president of New Oak Capital. A lot of stuff to talk about. The market ready to turn. We're going to ask you later on in the show. All right, Jim, buying a dip. You know, I know you're more one of these more reserved, kind of cool, suave dudes. That's why we bring you on the show. But I know you had to be sweating the last few weeks, too. Did you nibble a little bit?
The morning was pretty ugly. You had a lot of selling in Europe. You had a lot of global concerns. And then you had the ECB trying to, squash some concerns, left rates unchanged, new asset purchase program. And it basically said they're behind the curve and the market really started to come off. But again, I thought we'd kind of level out today a little bit ahead of, as Matt said, tomorrow's the big number. I think people wanted to flatten it out.
So you're saying you kept your powder dry?
Kept my powder dry.
But you did breathe a sigh of relief.
I like where we finished the day. Thought it was a nice bounce as people started focusing on the U.S. and less a little bit on the global concerns.
You mentioned Mario Draghi and the ECB. We don't talk about that a lot with the audience. That's sort of the European version of the Federal Reserve. I got to tell you, I kind of like this guy in the sense that he's not being pushed around and flooding their markets with all the cheap currency that we've done over here. He gets criticized for it, but I think ultimately Europe has got to find their own way. Do you think at some point the markets will stop worrying about Draghi and the America's Fed?
I think America's Fed looks like the rock in all this, and despite doing the helicopter bend and whatnot, the fact is the ECB is now possibly going to take a page out of our book and is going to start to see some asset purchase programs and whatnot because it did help us, and I think they're going to try to imitate it.
You think it helped us? So that brings us to our next real deal. Jim, I want to talk to you about these red flags because they're becoming bigger and bigger. Do you think we're heading? And I say we, the world, the global economy is heading toward a serious crisis real soon.
Look, you named some very big issues. The oil one to me is most interesting. Which camp are folks in? Are you in the global slowdown, which is why prices are coming off, or are we into a kind of a pricing war where Saudi feels that they can afford to, I guess, wage war and again, reduce the price of oil, which has plummeted? I'm actually thinking that global slowdown plays a bigger role, which is what we just talked about with Europe. On the Ford issue, I recognize they're having recalls, trouble in South America. They also have fierce competition, and they might have some kind of old models. It might be more than just recalls.
I agree with you. I think Ford's got some additional issues beside that. Plus, yesterday when the monthly car sales came out, they had a real ugly number. But Scotty,
I just say, but on the airlines, there's an old joke about you know how to get $1 million worth of airline stock. You start with $10 million, but that really has changed in part because of the consolidation, the bankruptcies. There's less competition. They can raise fees, they have all these fees and they can raise their prices. I think 9 airlines used to dominate 80% of the market only a couple of years ago. Now it's 4. So the airlines are an interesting space.
It's a balance sheet issue. I mean, you have no top line growth because people aren't going to the airlines and flying as much. And we were talking about this happened after 9/11. How are you going to make sure that growth happens? You're going to start imposing those fees in there.
But people are flying more.
Yeah.
Now
they
are. Yes, they
but
are.
that was before the Ebola scare. Let's talk about that going forward. I mean, obviously, our airline stocks took a hit in the last couple of days. So, is that one of those things? Are people going to start flying because of Ebola?
People aren't flying because of Ebola.
It just, that's the question of thought right now.
Well, to your point, we may have an Ebola fee. Now, I think that Ebola scare will be put under wraps, and the airline stocks, to your point, will go back up because they did consolidate.
Yep.
They do have all of these fees, and they parked half their fleet. That's why every plane is packed to the gills. Let's just say it's innocuous. Let's just say someone doesn't know they have the disease. The bottom line, though, is we just can't keep letting people come into the country.
The mistake happened at the hospital. He actually said his travel history. It did not get reported.
Jim, you don't think the mistake happened letting people in the country?
Well, what they're saying right now, what I read is that if they actually really reduce travel to these countries, all it does is delay the Ebola coming into the United States by about a month. And people are saying it's going to get here because, as Matt said, there is no way to stop the chain of all these different folks given the incubation of the
In that case, you should stay short to airline stocks. Are you serious?
Well, I am worried about the airline stocks short term, but
I'm worried about everything. If you're saying this is unstoppable.
At 1-800-663-1929. That's 1-800-663-1929.
And now, it's time for Upon Further Review.
Well, after making a bid of $5.4 billion, Norway, they decided, okay, we're going to just pull out of this contest for the 2022 Winter Olympic Games. So it only leaves China and Kazakhstan in the bidding process. And, of course, China, well, they're in the midst of this thing. You might have heard about it, this human rights disaster in Hong Kong and other parts of the country. And then the only thing that we really know about Kazakhstan is Borat. So who knew they had this kind of money? So, Jim, upon further review, should the Olympic Committee just sort of draw a line with respect to these authoritarian nations, or have the games themselves become so irrelevant? It's just a big money grab now.
Well, in terms of the irrelevant, I would say the Winter Olympics, the viewership has been strong. So people are interested.
Even for the Winter Olympics?
Even for the Winter Olympics.
I like the thing with the broom.
Curling.
Curling.
And in terms of where they draw the line, the fact is if they draw the line, you're not going to have any countries left to.
Well, you got two now.
You have two, yep. But if they work with Russia and China.
One with no mountains.
Right. And where do they draw it? Now, in the case of Kazakhstan, I think that's probably on the wrong side of the line. They rank 140th out of 177 countries in terms of world corruption. So I do think we've probably gone a little too far. But the fact is, Sochi has scared everybody. The Russians spent over $50 billion on this thing, and people are like, you know what? I don't want to touch it.
Yeah, well, Vladimir Putin put $500 million in his pocket. There's no doubt. All right, now you are a big dividend buyer.
No, we absolutely. I mean, first of all, trying to be a value player, looking at big companies that have a long history of paying dividends, things like P&G, things like, Wells Fargo is something that I like to talk about. I am a believer in the financials, in the core four big banks, and Wells Fargo has come at this thing better than most.
Value, I keep, when the guys come on and mention value, I wanted to, to sort of make it crystal clear for the audience, because I think it means different things to different people. To me, it's almost a euphemism for, hey, I'm going to invest your money for you, and we're not going to beat the market a lot, but unless you give me 20 or 30 years. I'm not trying to dish you, but is that what we're saying here?
I think when we talked about people, day traders or people trying to react to events going on, and then you say, do they really care if they're buying kind of strong U.S. companies that have a history of performing over a 10, 20-year period? So yes, but I'm talking about value. I'm talking about the part of your portfolio you can put away and not think about it. The two stocks that got mentioned, huge dividend payers, but almost to the point of, I would say that's a level of risk that's why you're getting those 15+% dividends.
Yeah, and also, but the value, not only you get the upside of the stock, but they do add up over years. Time now for the marching orders, guys. It is the moment of truth, and I want to get the over-under. Give me the exact number of the jobs report tomorrow, and then exactly what the market reaction is going to be, starting with you, Jim.
We're going over the estimates, 220. Market's going to trade up on the news. They're not going to want to hear it, but they're going to shift to talk about Fed talk and Fed speak, and we're going to taper off a little bit. But we're going to react positively on the news.
Down, and finish up for the day.
Yes.
All right, Heather.
260. I think the market's going to go up 150 points, and I think we're going to finish up.
260.
Yeah.
Wow,
I'm in your camp.
Huh? Okay.
Yeah, but I think it's maybe false jobs from the retail reports, and I think people are getting a little bit too excited about the growth. But yeah,
I think you're getting a little too excited over there. 260, 215, but I think the revised up about 40,000 from last month. I think the market's up pretty big because I think we're due for a pop, and it's going to be good news. And now good news in the market means it's positive for the market.
All right, Scotty, I've got you down 3 for 3 on a conspiracy theory.
Okay, so I originally was going low, but then I heard President Obama speak. He inspired me, so I'm going to go high, 235, and I think the markets are going to be the same. Unless it's higher, then the markets will go up. It's lower, the markets will go down.
All right, let's reiterate yours one more time,
Yeah,
Johnny.
so I'm going for 225, but I'm with Matt. I think it's going to be more important to look at the revisions for August, and that's what we need to pay attention to. And I think the market probably will be unchanged if those numbers come in.
All right, well, I'm going to go with, I'm close to Heather now. I'm going with 250,000 and a revision of 60,000 in August. And I think the Dow goes up 200 points. All right?
What do we win? Do we get kicked off the island here? How are we going to do this? Over, under?
We've got it right there, guys, all on the screen. We'll talk about it again tomorrow. What do you win? Well, who's ever in last can't come back. You're right. It's like a musical chairs.
We need to correct that number then on that screen. Like I said, I was inspired today.
All right, guys, listen, it was a great show. Really appreciate everybody.